the thing was, the V7 program, if you got your degree from college, you could go into the Navy and work for an officer, become an officer. And they were short officer candidates in Chicago in April of 43. I signed up in April of 42. And in April of 43, they called and said anybody that they would guarantee a degree could come to and become work for an officership. So I went around and talked to my professors, and I think they wanted to get rid of me. So they said, yes, you can pass out, and we'll guarantee a degree in June, which is what happened. I went into the Navy in April, I think it was 29th of 43, and went to Chicago. And this was a course that lasted 90 days, and we all considered ourselves 90-day wonders. And we got out, we wondered what we were going to do, but we survived somehow. I remember all the information they gave us about going on board ship. We salute the ensign, the aft end of the ship, and climb aboard and ask for permission. And when I got down to get on board ship, I was loaded down with stuff. I forgot to salute. I didn't even ask permission to come on board. I mean, these were things that you have ingrained and then forget. So, but they let me on board, and I started to go work for the Navy then. And the carrier, I was on a carrier called the Intrepid. It was at that time it was a CV-11. Since it's been CV A11 and CVS11, and at the present time it's a museum in New York City, and they've just taken it from dry dock to have it refurbished at a Navy yard, and it's changed a lot from when I was on board ship. My duties on board ship were standing watch in the communications office, and it was primarily breaking messages and encoding messages that we had to send to out and receive, and then we had to route them to the various officers and departments that were interested, and they were all classified from operational priority to just slow, and then they were secret and confidential. And so we had to wrap them up and have the messengers take them around. We stood 4-hour watches. Generally, we broke messages for just 4 hours. I sat there at a typewriter and broke these messages on an electric coding machine, we call them. I don't know how they worked, but they worked. And then we had several different kinds of codes too. We had a 5-letter code and we had a 4-letter code, and they meant different things to the communications officer, which I have forgotten now, which is probably a blessing anyway. It was an interesting job. We'd have 4 hours on, 4 hours off, 4 hours on, and then we'd have a split watch in the evening from 2 to 6. From 4 to 6 and 6 to 8. And then you go back on midnight again. And so you're always either smoking or drinking coffee. You hardly ever ate, and I found that I could go to sea and lose 15 pounds in about 2 weeks, but then come back to the States for repairs and put on the weight, which was nice. My ship duty, I had a chief by the name of Crow, and he was the chief of Division 3, K3, that I was supposed to oversee. And when I went on board ship, I met Mr. Crow, and I said, Crow, I'm the officer in charge of this division, and I don't know peanuts. I said, you protect me, and I'll help you all I can. And it worked out beautifully. I remember one time I was trying to get some nap time between watches, and the boys in the K division upstairs were rolling dice on the deck, which it's a no-no, in the Navy. So I called Crow and I said, Crow, I'm trying to get some sleep, and the boys in K3 above me are rolling dice. Would you tell them to put a blanket down? I never heard another word. It was quiet, and nobody ever said anything. But I suppose if I'd been a good officer, I could have put him on report and given holy heck, but why do it? I mean, I suppose I'm not a black shoe Navy person, so I was a reserve officer and kind of feeling my way along and got all the help I could. Anyway, on board ship, the time I was on about 18 months, and I had survivor's leaves and had nine battle stars on my ribbons. The survivor's leaves came about because we got torpedoed in truck just after Valentine's Day in '44. I think it was the 16th, evening of the 16th, about midnight. And then later on, we got that fixed. Head came to the States and had an availability at Hunters Point, which is south end of San Francisco. I love San Francisco. And that was a survivor's leave. Then we got repaired, went back out, and headed to, well, we went to truck primarily to soften that because we were going to go to Eniwetok and attack them. But we didn't get to go to that. We had to come home and get repaired. The next engagement that we really got hurt in was in the Philippines, and it was a kamikaze, and it got us on the aft end on the starboard side, and the damage was minimal to the ship, and we were able to repair it and keep underway. And then that happened in the latter part of September of '44.
Did you see the plane coming in?
No, because I was in an office. And then the big one came on November 25th of '44. We got a kamikaze, and it landed on the flight deck, the bombs went through down to the hangar deck, and we had airplanes on the hangar deck that were inoperable, but they were loaded. They had bombs and gas. So that caused quite an explosion. And we had learned from another accident that you tip your ship to the port side, and all the gas and fire will drain off. If it went to the right side, it would go down the elevators into your ammunition holds and blow you up. So that happened, I think, to the Franklin. So that was in our operating management that this is what they do. And we did, and we were successful, except we burned. The flight deck was wood, and we burned and smoked, and you couldn't even see the ship for a while. They have pictures of it. And that was quite bad. We had a group of firemen from Los Angeles. DeMarco was the chief, and they were down on the hangar deck putting out fires when the second airplane hit, and never did find them. I mean, the whole unit of them was gone, and it was pretty sad. Then the control for the radar was hanging right under the hangar deck, and it was totally demolished, and all the fellows that were running radar were gone. So we lost a lot of people on the 25th, and that made us come back to the States for another availability. And while that was being repaired then in '84 and 90, I'm all mixed up on my dates now. It was 1944 to 1945, and I was stayed with the ship, and then I was transferred to photo intelligence work in Washington, D.C. in March of '45. So in '45 then I went to Washington, D.C. Got married on the way, and we honeymooned to Washington. And when I got to Washington, I took my training for another 3 months, I think it was, and had priority orders out to the Pacific Ocean area for reassignment. And I had 5 days delay en route to stop at home and kiss my wife goodbye. And at that time, we were living in Red Oak. So I went to Omaha to get on the airplane, and who gets off the airplane but my shipmate, my roommate on board ship. And he had been out, and the Intrepid had been hit again, and he had come home on leave and was going back out again. So we flew to San Francisco together. got to San Francisco, and I went to the St. Francis Hotel to wait for their orders. They called me, I'll be coming, and said, your transportation is available. My transportation was the China Clipper. So I got on the China Clipper that evening and flew to Hawaii, and it was great. I had been to school at the University of California at Berkeley one summer in 39, and I could see the China Clipper go off into the sunset in the evenings from the Berkeley Hills. I just loved to watch it, and I thought, boy, that'd be great to fly. I got on it, courtesy of the government. That plane had 7 stories in it, and the top deck was a flight deck, and they had cots and everything for the pilots, and they had a scuttle behind in the wings where they could go down and repair the engines en route. It was an amazing airplane.